Jai Hind, welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi. As you can see, I have with me after a while, of course, Lieutenant General Syed Hasnain, who's going to take us through a very interesting conundrum that we see our friend Pakistan involved with. It seems to be sandwiched between two large, major superpowers engaged in a sort of a battle for control of the world, the USA and, of course, the Chinese. What is going to be the future of Pakistan? How will it be able to actually handle this game? Let's discuss. Sir, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you very
This
much.
is, these are some very, very interesting developments that have suddenly popped up, sir. Opening comments.
Well, right from independence, partition days, Pakistan aspired to be a part of the US camp, became a part of CENTO, and it was taking the American story far eastwards, keeping it centered in the central part of the world in the West Asian, Middle Eastern region, and therefore deriving all the benefits. And we found that the Pakistan economy was on a high in those particular days. During the Cold War, it remained completely pro the United States. Thereafter, we have had a history of US-Pakistan relations based on interests. Afghanistan, geostrategics, and many things like that. So it's not really an open and shut case of Pakistan always having been a part of the US camp. It's also been used tremendously by the United States to reach out to China. The whole concept of ping pong diplomacy in 1969 started from here, really saying. So it's a very important state, and as we discuss, this will keep emerging in our discussion.
So that's the interesting part, and I actually wanted to start somewhere else, but since you actually mentioned this as a communication line between USA and China, I'd like to just take that forward. The story is that Henry Kissinger started this whole game. What is happening right now? Do you see any movement in that particular aspect? I mean, it's a little far flung, but
See, Adi, of course, we are jumping the gun and coming straight to what it is today, but it's more important actually to tell very, very briefly into the past. And as I said, this has not been a fixed relationship, it's been an interest based relationship. But what's very important for our viewers to understand, Pakistan's geostrategic space is perhaps the most important geostrategic space anywhere in the world. I have been repeatedly saying this. And the reason for it is one of the few spaces in the world which is surrounded by 5 different civilizations. Now, if you really count it, the Indian civilization, the Chinese, the Central Asian, the Persian, and the West Asian. 5 civilizations have something to give to Pakistan, something to take away from Pakistan. Over history, this has happened. Pakistan is a new state. It's probably part of India. It's been a real new created space. And this new created space had the options of looking in this 360 degrees direction. Somewhere this has facilitated Pakistan tremendously. And you're finding that there's a struggle to keep Pakistan within. There are big powers who look for this geostrategic space to keep it within. 2, 3 examples. You cannot access Central Asia, the heart of Asia, without going through Pakistan, because Iran today is compromised. The status of Iran is compromised. You can't get to Afghanistan. Tomorrow, if the rare earth discoveries of the world are centered in this area, imagine the extraction is all from here. Oil from Central Asia, gas from Turkmenistan, it all comes out from here. China's access to the Indian Ocean, the Northwest Indian Ocean, is through this region. The alternative to the Malacca Straits is through this region. Who will not vie for this space? The United States, to fight its long war in Afghanistan, had to make use of Karachi harbor, Karachi port. You could not fight you couldn't fight an air war or fight a war through an airhead in Tajikistan or Turkmenistan. So these are some of the major reasons why Pakistan is considered such an important country and everyone vies for it. It loses support temporarily for some time, comes back into it after it compromises its own position. And that's exactly what's happening today. We will discuss.
let's come down to that, sir. One of the things I want to ask you is about the American game. Americans, again, I personally, and correct me if I'm wrong, I find it to be a transactional sort of a relationship that the Americans are having right now. It's some sort of a give and take. I personally feel it's those 122 millimeter shells which are going to Ukraine, a lot of winter wear and stuff like that, which is going to Ukraine. That's my opinion. What's yours, sir?
Both ways. What you're saying is not wrong. Transactional, to the extent, yes. American relationship has been transactional over a period of time, interest based each time. Uh, there is today a saying that NATO has run out of its own resources. It's provided so much to Ukraine that, and so much has been fired that today its own stocks are compromised. And if there's a war tomorrow, the NATO does not have enough stocks to fight its own
Stocks.
war. So 122 millimeter shells, perhaps manufactured at WA in the Pakistan ordnance factories, has all been flown out from there. There are rumors it's been flown out from India also, but of course we don't believe those kind of rumors. But this is the kind of rumor mongering which is going on, that Pakistan has been used for this particular purpose. But I am looking at this from a slightly different angle. I do think that the United States expected from India a very deep set strategic support, that now that we had reached a stage after 2005 when this relationship was really initiated, where we had reached a stage where the Americans thought that they could take the Indian support for granted. We demonstrated that you can take nothing from India for granted. We are not going to compromise our strategic autonomy. And therefore, our relationships with the world are Indian interest based. And that's exactly what we have done. We've gone with the Russians, we have gone neutral. We've not gone with the Russians, we've gone neutral right through. And we have maintained our relationship with the United States, with the Russians. The United States perhaps felt a little compromised, felt a messaging had to be given to India. And perhaps that's why it changed tack, it tweaked its relationship with Pakistan to an extent. It has helped the United States to a great extent. How? Just remember, the United States thinks, and let me be very brief on this. This is a theory which I'm propounding, it can be taken apart. The last time that we found the rise of militant radical Islam was in 1980-81, when 3 million refugees came out of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa from Afghanistan when the Russian war in Afghanistan broke out. Those are the same people who came into the refugee camps. These are the ones who were converted into radicals. They are the ones who became the Taliban. They are the ones who are ruling today. The Americans don't want this to happen ever again. If you want to shift tack from Afghanistan, you have withdrawn and you want to go to the Indo-Pacific, you can't allow Afghanistan and you cannot allow the Middle East to pull you back. That's the whole idea. Now, to do that, you have to make sure that the area where this potential exists, that's in Pakistan, is once again, this whole repetition of this game of 1980 and 81 is not repeated. What has happened in the last 2 months, Adi, if we are observing? That time, 3 million refugees came out. This time, 2.1 million refugees have come out of the greatest flood which has happened in Pakistan in years. These are compromised people, uneducated, under a feudal system, hugely influenced, religion there, existent terrorist activity and militant activity. You don't want this to happen. 30 to 40 billion dollars of material lost in an economy which is looking for a $9 billion loan from the IMF, which has still not been able to give them the $9 billion. Where is this country going to go? Is only going to produce more and more of the same and pull the whole world back. I think the Americans are being sensible. They lifted the FATF, they lifted the FATF. And I dare say the FATF was lifted with India not objecting. Because India also is strategic in its outlook. And I think we have been very sensible in this. I think we can control this game. I think today we are in a far stronger, better position to understand what's happening in the world. My only fear about Pakistan is that Pakistan has the world's greatest, most maverick leadership. And you're seeing it demonstrated every day today there. This leadership can outmaneuver people in the most devious ways. It outmaneuvered us in Kargil at the beginning of the war. It outmaneuvered us in 1989. It has done it many, many times before. That's the only thing I fear about Pakistan. Its ability to, anything which is rational, to make it irrational, and then create a problem for everyone. This is the only thing that we have to be very careful about.
Somebody mentioned somebody termed it as the Great Pakistani Double Cross.
Absolutely.
I was fortunate enough of using that particular word, but anyways, I find that to be very relevant, sir. So let's go with. I mean, I personally, I've been wondering what further. The FATF is now probably a symptom, right? If I may put it that way, what was it further that was happening? And I think you've elucidated that very well. So thank you. Uh, so China, this is an interesting thing. We've got the Chinese who did not help the Pakistanis when the time came floods. These guys were literally sinking. They sent some 25,000 tents, some pittance worth of money. I mean, at the end of it, that's what it was. How do you see this whole relationship developing when suddenly now Shehbaz Sharif Saab is supposed to go to China, and we see the ML1 switched on, we see another Gwadar refinery project come up. So it's a
See,
mix of
Adi,
paradoxical.
The Chinese have ways of influencing, but they are the world's, I think, the worst givers. You see, unlike the Western world, which gives and takes and extracts influence, Chinese want to take away. And this is a typical Chinese characteristic. Perhaps some of your great China watchers with whom you do some wonderful programs, they need to be questioned on this. Is this an inherent Chinese characteristic that when people need them, they let them down? The Sri Lankans, for example,
Huh?
the Pakistanis. I mean, at the height of 2018, 19, when there was a huge economic crisis going on, the Chinese were giving them $3 billion. What is $3 billion for the Chinese? I mean, they could have bailed out the whole of Pakistan 5 times over if they wanted. But they're
And Sri
very
Lanka.
careful about this, extremely careful about this. And this is exactly what is happening today. The whole China Pakistan economic corridor is not a question of free lunches. Everything is being extracted from it. And one of the things today is that nothing much is really happening. Because it was never intended to be economic. It was never intended to be economic influence. It was supposed to be strategic influence. The whole idea was to reach out to Gwadar somehow and make use of Gwadar, make use of that area of the Northwest Indian Ocean, etc. Right? I mean, if 30 to 40 billion dollars have been lost in floods, who is better in controlling floods anywhere else in the world than the Chinese? I mean, they've got huge problems of disaster in their country. But did they come forward to even offer something to the Pakistan? So this is a very strange transactional relationship. Sometimes it's on and off. You may call it sweeter than the whatever. I mean, higher than the skies and deeper than the oceans and sweeter than sugar or whatever you want to call it. But at the end of the day, this relationship, as you very correctly said, for the Americans, sometimes it is actually still transactional. The Americans do keep coming back in spurts and making it transformational from time to time,
Mm.
but not the Chinese so much. And it would not have led to this kind of resentment. There is huge resentment against the Americans in Pakistan. Much of it is ideological. Much of it is ideological. It's
Much
been
of it.
made out to be against the West and things like that. Against the Chinese is building up, is built up to a great extent. You have had assassination
Mhm.
of Chinese workers. You've had bomb blasts and things. Why would you do this to people who are supposed to be assisting you? No, no, no. The Pakistanis really, the public is really not in love with China in any way in this, as far as this relationship is concerned. So this relationship is a very iffy relationship. I won't call it the kind of relationship you expect between allies as such. And the last word on it, this relationship was strengthened actually by the Americans to a great extent after 69, 71 in particularly, in the great hope that it would compromise the Soviet Union of those days. It did help. It did help in breaking up the Soviet Union to some extent. And of course, once the war broke out in Afghanistan, then of course Pakistan became the frontline state and has been virtually the frontline state for many, many years, except for the gap in the middle, and now in the last 1 year or so.
It's quite a revelation about what the Chinese do, sir. But having said that, one fear that I see being enunciated amongst certain level-headed Pakistanis is that the fear that they find themselves becoming a playground for these big battles between two of these gigantic enemies. India, as you said, has been smart enough to put itself straight that listen, we will not, get involved with your business. Ours is ours, yours is yours. If we have common, let's fight. Fair enough. Pakistan, on the other hand, does find itself being influenced on both the sides. How do you think that is going to play out, sir?
Adi, I don't know how correct we would be in assuming that. Remember, this is not geographic purely, but the Americans are interested in stabilizing this area.
Hmm.
They know that the world's some great threats emerge from the Middle East and from the Southwest Asia area, particularly the whole cycle of global terror, which paralyzed the world for the better part of 20, 25 years. That has ebbed today. That has ebbed today, but not completely. I still say that a second cycle of terror, global terror, could emerge sometime in the near future because lots of things are unsettled in the Middle East till now. To assume that Abraham Accords is something which has settled issues in the Middle East, it would be very immature of us to assume that. To think that the Israeli-Palestinian conflict has been suppressed. You can't suppress conflicts of this kind. It will re-emerge. It keeps re-emerging from time to time, right? And similarly, Afghanistan, that it has been controlled, no. Afghanistan under Taliban is not under control. There are uncontrolled areas all over to which gravitation of terrorist groups has taken place. People are waiting, resting, and hoping, and things that people have got patience, and this is what will emerge once again sometime. So this is the pull area which will prevent the United States from being able to move to the Indo-Pacific, put its footprint there to prevent the rise of China into the whole Pacific region, which is of great interest to the United States, the whole area of ASEAN, Japan, East Asia, Japan, South Korea area. There's of great interest. The islands area, Australia, stretching into the Australian area, New Zealand zone. All this is a very important area which the United States knows that the Chinese are hell-bent on dominating, right? Now, therefore, the importance of Pakistan as the core center of this area of Islam, of, let's say, is one edge of Eurasia almost, and the most populated nation in the Middle East southwestern area, is the pull factor, the ability to come back to the situation of the early 80s, 90s, maybe the early part of the millennium. This is what they don't want, right? They know that the Chinese can have a reverse influence into the Middle East. They can have a reverse influence into the Northwest Indian Ocean area from where their energy resources come. That's a very important area for them. So, but the Chinese are not in a position to do very much there until their navy is of an order which can really contest the Americans. You can't contest the American navy in two major areas of the world. That's in Northwest Indian Ocean and also in the Indo-Pacific or the Pacific zone area as such. China has got a 700 ship navy, but still the quality is highly compromised as compared to what the US Navy is. So I don't anticipate this contestation taking place on the soil of Pakistan as such, but Afghanistan, Central Asia, Eurasia. Now you are noticing one thing: the importance which China is giving to SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the entry of Iran into SCO, and now the virtual status given to Turkey, in the sense that you moved your whole influence into the European zone now. Turkey is a part of NATO. Can you imagine a country from NATO becoming a part of SCO? That's an interesting observation. Where does this take us? So the battle zones of the world, which I call the Middle East, okay, now at this moment it is Central and Eastern Europe, it is the Eurasian area, it is Indian Ocean and the Pacific, which call it the Indo-Pacific, or you call them separately the Indian Ocean area and the Pacific zone area. These are the battle zones of the future. Each has got its own dynamics. How they merge, how they get dismantled. This is what the future dynamics of world power is going to be about.
Interesting. So, I mean, I think it's a changing world, and I'm going to be bothering you again to kind of understand this changing world order, because these sub units, if I may say, of these little groupings and alliances seem to be gaining more traction in terms of their power and their influence. We see that happening with the BRICS and the Saudi Arabia as well. So there is a shift in this order, which I will discuss with you another day, another episode, sir. But I'd like to just run through some interesting comments that I've come across, and just a short comment from your end, just one or two of them, sir. Uh, one of my followers say that the Chinese theory of backing away, and he says, the Chinese theory of backing away from all this is basically evolved from a Neanderthal, so they are special, and that's what they feel. uh, that's interesting. And there is also another comment on this particular aspect: the practice of taking away is a communist characteristics merged with the Chinese tributary system adopted as a foreign policy by a regime that has no spiritual bias. Just a comment on these two, sir.
Good, good. These are both very interesting. Neanderthal, of course, is an anthropological term coming from the old Neanderthal man, the Neanderthal theory as such. But the second comment was very interesting. This aspect of away, giving, this aspect of giving. The Chinese do not have a spiritual kind of a, at least today's China does not appear to have a spiritual kind of a understanding of human existence as such. I think the deep set communist system, which is going to be 100 years old subsequently in a couple of years, has got very deeply embedded in the Chinese system. And somehow they don't seem to understand their national interest uh, based on this. They have to realize that at the end of the day, influence is not based only upon these artificial aspects of media, legal, cyber, and things like that. Ultimately, it is human to human. I think that's the advantage which India has to a very great extent. And this is what India is rediscovering itself and finding itself, as a Vishwaguru, something which it is bringing differently to the world now. And I dare say this, the concept of Vishwaguru and the concept of home built culture, etc., all this, the Chinese are very proud of it, but have not been able to translate it into real
Yeah.
soft power. Indian soft power today, I think we've learned from the Americans how really soft power is played out. We haven't reached 50% of what the Americans have played in terms of soft power. But I think that ultimately tomorrow's wars, and based on 5G, 6G ultimately, which will come, you'll find people rooted all the time to screens and being influenced by all the time through eyeballs. I think all this will come through soft power. And hard part is you may keep constructing, bringing 122 millimeter shells from one part of the world to the other part of the world. But the way that you can influence with this soft power, you will never be able to influence with hard power.
True, sir. And I have one of our speakers from Dev Talks also on the show, Major General Rajiv Narayanan, who is asking: is Islamization of school curricula by the army in the mid 1980s biting them back? Imran, after all, is in and out Islamic. Can the army bottle this genie? Its future hangs in the balance.
You see, it's surprising. The Pakistan cricket team under Imran Khan and later under Inzamam ul Haq, the whole team was a set of Tabligis,
Yeah.
the Tablighi Jamaat, as it's called. And the Tablighi Jamaat was nothing wrong really what the Tablighi Jamaat was. It was supposed to be just a club actually to revive some practices of Islam in certain areas. But it was a huge network. And this network got, people, the radical organizations rode bandwagon on these networks to spread their culture around the world. And that is what compromised. And these people were among the leaders of that, the cricket team in Pakistan in particular. The Pakistan army chose to deliberately do it as a part of the Zia doctrine from 1977 because they felt that the only way to get their back on India was to connect. It was actually to compromise India's different fault lines, but they selected the major fault line of Kashmir and felt that they could play it through the radical Islamist game. They could connect up Kashmir to Pakistan, to what's happening in the rest of the Islamist world of that time, and hope to be able to compromise the people of Jammu and Kashmir, which is what led to the Kashmiri Pandit genocide on 19th of January 1990. Right? So what General Narayanan is saying is absolutely correct. Through the 80s, a deliberate effort was made to play this. And the thing for them was they chose their opportunities. This is something about Pakistan we have to remember, Aadi. They choose their opportunities. When they get their opportunities, they grab them. In 1989, they knew this is the opportunity we have got against India. Let's grab it. We may never get it again. And they did it. And for 30 years, they played the game against us.
That I'm sure, sir. And as I think, if that's the last thing I'm going to say in this particular thing, They open well, sir. Their battle plans at the opening strokes, if I may, are fantastic. Of course, strategically, a lot of things could be said, but there's no question in that aspect. I wish we had a little bit of a larger foresight in the past history where we could also capitalize on these little things that the Pakistanis have been able to
Therefore,
do.
Adi, I must leave your program on a note. Yesterday also I was in a very interesting discussion on a book called The Other Side of the Line of Control. Right, a book written on Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir. That's beautifully written book by Ambassador Dinkar Srivastav. I went a year ago back to Badami Bagh, my old headquarters, and the corps commander asked me to speak to the officers, and I spoke to a large number of officers of the video system. So before that I asked him, "What would you like me to speak on?" And I thought his answer was I mean, it was just the right response. He told me, "Sir, everyone here and in the army knows what is happening in Jammu and Kashmir. They are following day to day, India today, this, that, here." So I said, "So?" He says, "So no one knows what happened here yesterday." So I got shocked. I said, "What do you?" He says, "Sir, dot to dot, if you can join for us." Oh, what happened here from 1977, 1979 onwards? People have forgotten. They don't know what happened here and why are we here doing this today. I had a field day doing it because this is all there and mapped in my mind. I sat there and did it. This is what our planners, our strategists need to do. Never forget what happened here, how you were duped, how you were taken for a ride, because this must never happen to you again. The last
True.
word, read the Honorable Raksha Mantri's statement yesterday on up north, Gilgit
Yeah.
Baltistan. It's one of the best drafted pieces of strategic literature which has come out for a long time.
As a matter of fact, I quoted that tweet and put out the video that I had done with Colonel Raina about this whole incident that the Raksha Mantri spoke about. Incidentally, we did the video just a day before this thing happened, so it was some sort of a divine timing that came across. Sir, thank you so much. I mean, I'd like to just take this opportunity. This is a fantastic little episode that we've done. Touched upon a lot of very interesting things of something that's happening around us. And Pakistan has never failed to if I may use the word, astonish people. It's not something that one can predict very easily. Of course, there's a lot of turmoil internally, but one thing that we must understand, they are still balancing both these things, being such a small and a weak country. Something that we need to reckon with. They're using, as you said, their strategic position and location the best possible way for whatever little that they can get at this particular state. Before I sign off, guys, hit the like button, subscribe, check your bell icons, and of course, yes, check out the website www.thedevtalks.com, and don't forget to try and see if you can support Dev Talks. Till next time, sir. Jai Hind.
Thank you very much. All the very best.
Thank you, sir. Guys, that was a fantastic episode with General Hasnain. I think I had done this episode with regards to the whole shell business. I think he took a step forward with regards to the FATF revelation that he's put across. I will go through some certain comments that I found very interesting. Of course, General Sir had to leave, but I really forced him into this particular episode. So reorient itself to prioritizing economic relations with India, forego its terrorism policy. Well, that's going to be very difficult. This bird has already left its cage. How much time will it be there outside for? It's going to be very difficult to actually actualize. Of course, there are statements to this effect, but let's see what exactly happens. If Pakistan's geopolitically important, so why is USA making a terrorist chaos country? This is irrational behavior by the West, especially USA, knowing Pakistan has nuclear capacity. Guys, please understand every country will work for its own interests. USA has probably got a certain interest in this particular region. That's why he's doing what he's doing. We need to figure out what's in our interest and counter it. There's no such thing. Pakistan has a certain geopolitical importance in terms of its location. There's no question about it, and let's not forget it. Right, Mandar Saab. Quite frankly, our interests are as anti-dollar hegemony as they are anti-China. Of course, I want to discuss this a little further. I'm trying to do some research on this de-dollarization business. It's not something which is easy. Even a lot of these economists have got it wrong, but it's going to be quite difficult for us to see. Uh, Kamal Saab, I think you also mentioned this very interesting. I mean, to trust a communist with anything in its own fault. There's this good old saying which says that if you're 19 and a communist, then you're a fool. But if you're 40 and still a communist, then you're a damn fool. So I agree with you with what you're saying. So it's actually a old saying that I just took out. There were reports that now Karachi is going to be a part of the CPEC. How will they recover money from Balochistan? Well, Karachi, to my mind, Port Qasim has been given to the Chinese for using it for a while now. So it's not something that is going to be a news sort of a thing. But how far that has happened is difficult to analyze, because understand any of these Chinese deals are done in secrecy. Money from Balochistan, well, the Pakistanis work at the barrel of the gun, so I am sure if they need to get something from there, it's going to be easy. Sujit sir, thank you so much for your these things pertinent questions, sir. I always have more and more questions. Time is only short. That's all. Thank you so much for your comments, and please do connect with me. I think I've left a message for you as well. Please do connect with me on the email. How long Afghanistan can fight with Pakistan? From where will they get arms and ammunitions in the future? And it is landlocked with hostile neighbors on the side. See, understand one thing's up. If Afghanistan needs to be put up, they will get the weapons. There are loads of people that sell these weapons. USA has left a whole lot of weapons for them. They left a lot in Iraq, in Iraq as well, and there is a huge market with regards, drugs versus weapons, which actually takes place. Remember, we are sitting in the golden triangle of drugs, and the origin is Afghanistan. So it's not going to be that difficult for them to find, um, you know weapons and money for it and stuff like that. Yeah, of course, their economic money and all that is going to be difficult, but this, I'm sure they can find it. The Chinese believe that they have evolved separately from the rest of humanity, didn't come from Homo sapiens, making them special. Well, I'll take your word for it, Mandasa, but one thing that we must understand, the Chinese have this concept of the Middle Kingdom. They obviously feel that, and a big thing that we must also look at, the Great Wall of China was built to keep these barbarians, the hordes of barbarians away. By the way, we come under that category of barbarians for the Chinese. So yeah, to a certain extent, with regards to their thought processes, yes, they do feel that they are kind of superior from the rest of them. With Pakistan out of FATF, and now South Korea and Japan expressing interest to work with Pakistan, will we see the return of terrorism in Kashmir perpetrated by funds from USA? As General Sir mentioned, that is one of the fears, because Pakistanis have this huge habit of double crossing every damn thing that is walking in front of them. Let me assure you, the South Korea and Japan, they've been relations before as well. How far they come up, because Japan has very close defense and other relations with India. It's a balance that they'll have to probably maintain. So that's, and the economic might of a country does come into play. Uh, and Pakistan will not have much to offer. But understand one thing: any country that would work with Pakistan for the moment will have to do it on a deferred payment basis, if I may, because the money factor is going to be a bit difficult for Pakistan to figure out. Will USA allow Pakistan to buy Turkish helicopters as their relationship news looks better? Sir, they will allow USA Pakistan to get rearmed a little bit. They've allowed those Jordanian F-16s. They've allowed the refitting of their F-16. So something or the other will happen, because I also believe that the USA will use Pakistan to a certain extent to control stuff coming out of Afghanistan. We won't hear much about it. These news will not come out that much, but I think some sort of a game would be done. Look at the drone strike that was conducted on Zawahiri. It couldn't have been done without ground support. You just don't go into a country, fly a drone for 46 hours and just go hit someone. You need to have ground support. You need to have intelligence and stuff like that. So some sort of a game will happen. I don't deny that fact. But let's see how it opens out. What I could come to know, and General Sir also agreed with me on that, is those 122 millimeter shells played a big role in breaking the ice initially. If you know, there was no contact between Pakistan and USA, especially when Imran Khan was there. Minute he left, kind of all that stuff started coming out. Afghanistan people are influenced by our soft power. No questions about it. They've there is a huge groundswell of information of the right stuff and the right picture about India, and there's no question about that. Only religion can help India, as soft power is Hindu scripture like Gita, Upanishad, Yoga, Patanjali. I have not seen any other religion book as soft power. See, one thing, I mean, I normally don't discuss religion on and domestic politics, but I'd like to just say one little thing is that one thing that we've seen that India has not had to push. The culture has reached a lot of the places, and that's what is called soft power. It has reached with the right way in the right direction. Of course, we need to do a lot more. I agree with you. Yoga and stuff like that, Ayurveda is very critical for us to spread our word around. But having said that, it's surprising the kind of establishment and setup that is there in around the world about India and its culture. Pakistan has a good opening gambit. Rajiv sir, I think I don't have any comments to this. As a matter of fact, आपने तो this is exactly what I was trying to actually say. Good opening gambit. इनका opening batsman बड़ा solid होता है. उसके बाद middle order पूरा crack down and it just falls down. I've not seen their one thing that I don't know, sir, if you would agree with me, but I personally feel that the Pakistanis plan their operations really well without considering the response coming from the other side. And that's something that one can see with the kind of attacks that they took upon themselves in Kargil and stuff like that. They probably didn't think that, and there will be a response from India and stuff like that. Mr. Srinivas, last comment of the day. Thank you. Oh, okay. Thank you so much. Wonderful to see your shows, varied issues. Uh, can you do an episode on Indian fighter aircraft capabilities against Pakistan and Chinese air power? Sure, I will try and figure that out. It's a interesting and a very large subject, very complicated subject. I will try and figure this out in the next some time. I'll speak to a couple of my Air Force contacts, but I'd really request you go back. There is a video that I've done with Air Marshal Khosla on the role of Indian Air Force, and another video that I've done. I forget the headline of it, but it is with Air Marshal PK Barbora, who was the Vice Chief of Air Staff. Very interesting episode where he's spoken about the capabilities of the Pakistani and the Chinese Air Force. So check that out. It'll give you some sort of a perspective till the time I do something. Guys, thank you so much. I'll try and give you another update by the end of the day or late night sometime. If there is anything big that is happening, I'm working on an episode for tomorrow, as I said, with Jan Shankar. That will be on Sunday, tomorrow at 10 p.m. at night. Tomorrow in the daytime, I probably have a little bit of a interesting development that I see happening around us, especially in China, which I will actually share with you. Uh, Mr. Kiran asked me what is your comment on the Turkish cyber army. Well, there'll be a lot of these things happening here. Let me show you. The Turkish would, because you're developing relations with Armenia, you're developing relations with Greece. The Turkish will do stuff like this. There is no question about it, and this thing will keep on dragging on. Remember, Turkey is trying to carve out a space for itself in that entire game, entire geopolitics which is happening in Europe, and he's going to try and become a little more important by spreading his influence around the place. So there's nothing wrong. You should probably be able to counter it and spread counter influence if it's required. Right. Thank you so much, gentlemen and ladies. If there are any, please do hit the like button, check your subscription, hit the bell icon, and most critically, guys, please ensure that you, spread the word about Dev Talks. Tell your friends. I got a lot of requests from a lot of people who wanted to join the Dev Talks group. Let me know if you guys have any more, and please do send in your name, your contact number, and a way for me to verify who you are. I'm sure all of you or some of you who've seen this program or seen the last night's program, we had a wonderful little guest dropping in from Pakistan. There are more such incidents, so I just want to make sure that I'm protecting the people that I'm connected with. Thank you so much for trusting me with your time. Don't forget, if you can, do contribute to the Dev Talks efforts by using the UPI, the join button to become a member, or just send a super sticker by clicking thanks. Till next time, guys. Jai Hind.